I called the next panel because I think the stage was set. We're going to go into the vCon. We have Matt, Robert, Jon, Sebastian, and Mark, please, on stage. 1, 2, 3, yes, you're coming. Fantastic. You're going to shed more light on this great trillion-dollar opportunity. We'll look at specifically from an operator perspective. Stage is yours. We have enough space. We have the microphones.
We're all set, I think.
We're all set. Enjoy. Thank you.
Great. So, welcome everybody. I'm Matt Townend, Managing Director and Founder of Cavell, which some of you will know, some of you won't, research and consulting business. And I first came across vCon by actually working with Robert, one of our big service provider company, global service provider customers, got interested in the topic, and I needed to find an expert and who could help us on that, and I came to Robert actually and to help us on it. So we've been working with a service provider who's practically been looking at some of those use cases. But on the panel today, we've got a great mixture of service providers, experts, vendors running platforms, etc. So what I'd like to do first is maybe to talk around where you're deploying it and really try and dig into this use case. As some of you will realize, I was the annoying guy asked the question about go-to-market. I tend to be really focused on how the hell are you going to sell this stuff and through who and with what use cases, which sometimes is a bit old-fashioned, but it's kind of where my mind sits. So maybe we could start with you, Robert, just talking a little bit about who you are, but where you're deploying or thinking about. I know not everybody's deployed yet, but thinking about deploying vCons and why.
Yeah. So we're not a telco. Excuse me. But I think we're a fantastic example for telcos. If you're producing vCons for every conversation, producing vCons for every message, we're hoovering those vCons up and turning them into insights and action back into your enterprise customers. So as you think about the future of vCons and what it means to you and your customers, look at us as an example of a software developer who could be a customer of yours and building on top of your platform.
Okay. And Jon, I've known for a long time, and you're powering, I don't want to get the number wrong, but thousands of service providers around the world with your platforms. So where are you?
I'll settle for 235.
235? I was going thousands, sorry. 235 service providers around the world using your platforms. Why? And where are you interested in the vCon concept?
Yeah, so I'm Jon Brinton, Chief Revenue Officer at Crexendo. We have the NetSapiens platform that powers those service providers. And where we and our licensee, our customers, are most interested in this, kind of go back to what Andrew said this morning about intelligent engagement. Those engagements now happen across so many different channels, whether it is email, chat, voice, whatever. And what we find enterprises are especially interested in is the ability to harvest the data in all of those engagements and have it actually be meaningful to them. Because traditionally, those communications all kind of happened in silos. You can't see a customer journey. Our partners have found significant value, especially those that have taken the lead in deploying vCons, in helping enterprises see the customer journey across all of those channels of engagement and then harvesting the intelligence that comes out of that.
And some of your partners have always been pretty innovative. Some of them have been very software-based service providers. So it's quite interesting that some of them are already deploying this technology.
Yes. Yeah, we have ones that are early on it that are already deploying it. We have an event like this for our community next month in the U.S., where one of the main topics for this year will be how they can add additional value for vCons to kind of help democratize that for the rest of the community so they can understand what their peers are doing with us already.
And Mark, we've known each other about 15 years, and as well as running your own service provider, you've been the representative on the Cloud Communications Alliance board for about 15 years, representing other service providers as well. So you have a kind of a unique view. So where do you see it being deployed in? Why are you interested in that?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Thanks for being here, everybody. My company is Zera. We're actually a family of companies. We operate data center properties, and that's where the cloud lives. It was really about having a whole stack. And the AI revolution is just impacting that business tremendously. As you indicated, we have telco segment, in Telnet worldwide. And then we operate a contact center business called Superior Contact. And as you also indicated, being part of the Cloud Communication Alliance and the government affairs and regulatory, which is another factor in these things. The place that animates me most is really in the contact center. Having lived in this business for such a long time, you want to see all the modalities of communication taking place, walk into a contact center. You have in and outbound voice, you have in and outbound text, you got email, you have all the skills and training that needs to take place within those environments. As we look at the prospects of AI, the emergence of the vCon is a game changer because the money is in the data. It's in the data. And our ability to have a immutable ledger where we can control and store these multiplicity of channels is a game changer. And it allows us to enable things, we can get into this a little bit more, about, hey, we could go in there and run our AI and tell our customer where they're leaving money on the table, but maybe they want that data and we want to have a way to give it to them. So, some of the ideas.
And Sebastian, last but not least, where are Deutsche thinking about this?
Yeah, thank you. I'm with the wholesale unit of Deutsche Telekom. We're building a digital service platform with CPaaS, with an API integration platform. And for me, the spark on vCon really set last year at this event as well, where I understood the benefits and to me, so in our CPaaS platform that we built, it's a sovereign platform focused on use cases where you want to make sure that your data stays in country, stays in Europe. So whether it's the public sector, whether it's health insurance, whether it's also other telcos. So we serve the interconnect platform. We have legacy traffic, a lot of legacy traffic. We have now new traffic, and we're thinking of moving up the value chain. And to me, as a telecom, with all that legacy traffic, but also trying to tap into APIs and having not just people consume these APIs, but more and more machines, agents, and so on, which I think is really a big differentiator. I think vCon is certainly something that we want to invest in. First of all, from an experience point of view, so I'm from the technical side, not yet from the business side, so I cannot come up with numbers, but I certainly see the potential. That's why we are building it into our platform. We are looking at integrating it also into our legacy platforms. That means the billions of voice minutes, global voice minutes that we serve eventually may be vCon enabled. Yeah, that's still maybe. It's not yet concretely planned, but we're looking into that. We're partnering with Creo through one of our integrators to get up something working that is integrated with our technology stack. So we learn how to use it. We want to learn as well, and that's very important to me as well, about the ecosystem. We are certainly just an enabler. We're not going to drive, I think, the end user application, but certainly we want to have vCon as an interface. We want to make sure this trusted layer, SCID, and the permissions and everything that's around it is something we understand, is something we manage with partners, to some extent ourselves. So I think there can be a role in this whole thing for telcos, and I think the best way to get started is use one of the grassroots projects that we've started with our own in-house platform to develop the technical skills to understand how it ties in, and then work very closely with business to develop, let's say, into the commercial aspects as well.
Great. And maybe, Rob, we can now sort of dig into some of the use cases that you're seeing through your partnerships. So where is the rubber really hitting the road? And we heard a minute ago about, certainly in car retail, but other examples you're seeing, customer use cases that you think are really compelling?
So there's definitely a vertical component where we see an opportunity to take analytics that we're able to process at volumes that we've never been able to process before, right? Because now we can touch every conversation and turn those into industry-specific insights. And with the power of AI development and being able to push things out quickly, we're able to actually take all of these conversations and quickly turn up brand new dashboards and brand new experiences. So I'll give an example of one service provider that we work with. They've got a really good AI guy, and he's using vibe coding, where we now have this standard way to pull every conversation off of the network. And he's literally standing up a new application for his customers almost every day, right? And what's really cool is you can stand up 100 applications very quickly, and it doesn't cost a whole lot of money to do that. And who cares if 99 of them are throwaway applications? That one application, he hit a nerve with his customers, and it's going gangbusters, right? So that's a place that we're seeing a lot of opportunity.
Indicate any of those applications. So what would be the one that's hit the nerve? Are you allowed to share with us? What is the application that's really getting customer buy-in?
So it was actually focused on, it was for smaller franchises where they've got a bunch of churn at the front desk and they've got people that they've got to train up on a repeated basis, right? So here's what a good call looks like. What he was able to actually do was take those calls, they grade every call against a specific script, and they provide, after every call, feedback to the person at the front desk on, here's how you could have handled this call better. Here's how you could have actually completed the sale.
So something you might get in a big formal contact center maybe, but now you can apply just to the front desk of any business.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. John, I know your partners, some of them are deploying. If there's any that have triggered your mind that you've seen, or any industries or any areas where you've seen specific use cases that you found interesting?
Yeah, I think there's two things. One that's, they're both positive, but one that's more about customer retention, another it's about customer upsell. And it makes me think, in the last slides, Charles had a stat that only 17% of companies were kind of taking and doing anything to utilize their data across channels. So the first thing I'd say is this is something that really makes it easier for all organizations to do that. So leverage the data they've got as a starter. But the one example is obviously coaching at scale. I think the two things that we really see that vCons help enable is because the transcription has gotten so good from conversations that exist, and then also because the AI engines have gotten so fast, instead of sampling just a very small amount of an agent's calls or a group's calls, taking vCons and applying them to the model for a contact center or call center really allows you to coach at scale, a version of what Robert was talking about, where you can take all those conversations and individually direct them to agents for improvements to help them become better at assisting customers. The second one, so that's kind of the positive, it's just that ability to coach at scale, and we've seen customers apply that in some of the more voice-intensive, speaking to customer industries. And then the other one I would say is just helping to find opportunities for upsell. So you can look at examples of where customers have ended up buying more products from an organization. Look at what agents did or what they did in the buyer journey to help coach them on increasing their average transaction size, and leverage that data, because you can match your vCon conversations with your actual point of sale type data, and then leverage how then you across your organization, you can teach your employees as a group on how to do a better job of increasing your average transaction per customer. And we have specific partners that are highly focused in verticals where they've used both of those ways to really add value. And from a dollar and cents perspective, since I'm from the U.S., I'll give it to you in dollar and cents. If we look at the commoditization of a lot of the voice services, we see customers willing to spend multiples of what they would be investing with our partners for just voice services in order to get this data, because it is so valuable to them, and they've never had a way to easily harness it before.
Okay. And Mark, you're both a business owner of a BPO as well. Where are you seeing, which is the use cases you think you can monetize either for your end customers or will be really useful for you?
Yeah. When I think about any of our businesses, a business exists to create value for its customers, right? And so one of the things that we go out and look to is similar to what you're speaking there, is that there's kind of two key ways. I can create value for a business if I can help improve their productivity. Right? If I can improve your productivity, get you more for less and things like that, that's a game changer there. And the other one is how I can improve your competitive position. So productivity tends to be a bottom line concept. Save money. Competitive position is top line idea. So similar thoughts here. So where we're looking to enable these things here has been a similar kind of thing, where we can go in there, improve productivity, taking advantage of the insights that we're gathering to help improve the quality assurance processes and improve the training and the agent assist type of activities. In terms of the top line area here is really where you're leaving money on the table again. It's like, hey, did you know that you had these things taking place? But the other thing I'd like to mention here is that with the vCon construct, the ability to containerize your data and actually have a transmittable piece of asset, it should not be should really be embraced very well, because it's where you now have saved your value. For example, we have customers who we have just a large utility company. They just switched from InContact to Genesis as their platforms, and they have a truckload of data sitting over on this other platform. So now it's like, well, how do I get it over there so we can and we don't have amnesia as to what occurred before? So this is some of the things that we now can have a conversation about, is how we're able to then, hey, we have a safe place for your data, and we're able to take that forward.
So useful for migration use cases.
Migration, yeah.
And Sebastian, you're in a different kind of position as the wholesale provider.
Yeah.
But in terms of the use case, Sebastian, for you, is it more you're going upstream saying we're going to enable this all for you in the future because of the data? I was thinking from Sebastian's perspective as a wholesaler.
I think from our perspective, certainly from the wholesale area and focusing on the connectivity, we don't have all the data sources for a customer. So I think in general, we're going to be part of an ecosystem. We're going to be an enabler, as I mentioned, but not necessarily the one platform where they would run the vCon applications on. What I find interesting is we have a lot of things are differentiating our connectivity from others, even though there are many places where they're offered. One aspect I find interesting is also the level of standardization. I would compare it maybe a little bit with WebRTC. You don't have the exact use case, but you have a protocol that's defined on the exact on a good level. Let's say we don't need to wait for, let's say, GSMA to define use cases. We have a standard on IETF level, and we can build on top of that. And once it's implemented, once there is the permission framework, we'll see how the ecosystem evolves. And I think to me the ecosystem on top of vCon is exciting, because there are a lot of companies I've never heard of before, let's say, that seem to be driving it. It's not coming from the big ones. They are still in that ecosystem. And let's say I'm not in the vCon ecosystem for that long, but I find I think there's an interesting drive. I think it's the exact level of standardization, and to me, building it into our platform is just fitting into the way we build our products. There are AI leading companies, yet we have our own AI as Telecom that we're offering. It's not my team, it's somebody else doing it, because they are a customer that needs certain things they cannot get from the big ones. And the same is with CPaaS. Aggregators have their role, telcos have their role, usually providing connectivity. We saw that there is a certain area where it makes sense to step in to offer our own platform directly to those customers that want to come to us directly. It makes sense for us to resell certain parts of their platform. And I think having not just the call data records that we telcos used to produce about the beginning and the end and the number that was calling and the number that has been called, but also being able to generate information about that, the content that was shared, be it a voice, video, or a messaging session. I think that's it's a good enabler. I don't know yet which application it will drive specifically for us, but as an enabler, as a technical component, I find it exciting enough to make it part of the platform, to have also our API orchestration layer integrated, and to essentially see how we can do more than just put minutes from left to right.
The other one we've talked to customers about is benchmarking. So industry benchmarking or franchise group benchmarking. One of our joint customers has a lot of public sector businesses all in the same area, and they were very interested in being able to benchmark each other against things, but they wanted a standard way of getting the data together and then holding the data in a secure way, and they felt that was a pretty interesting opportunity to benchmark an industry on certain sectors. So that was another one that I know a customer who's pretty interested in moving that forward. I guess the other thing I was interested in, and we kind of talked about it, and it was in Charles's presentation as well, about finding those problems and then the vertical element. Because one of the things that strikes me about CPaaS, about this, about AI, when we look at all the AI agent businesses, they're all coming with vertical stories because they've got to get into the workflow, and the only way they can do it quickly is vertical. So what extent do you think these are going to end up being vertical solutions, or are they going to just be more broad in their capabilities? Rob, I know you've thought about that quite a bit.
Yeah, it's going to be a mix, right? So we've identified some very quick hit, horizontally applicable solutions, and that'll help telcos get their foot in the door. But ultimately, when you look at that revenue growth and the customer upsells, it'll start to get more verticalized as you get some of those additional applications in. But we're working with Crexendo on specific things that you can actually go in, and if you've got a 50-person location and they're spending $1,000 a month with you on telco, you can get in and sell them another $10 a seat on insights and things that help them do their job better, right? And that bumps them up to $1,500 a month, and then they're going to ask for that next thing that's going to bump them up to $2,000 or $2,500 a month. So the solutions really stack really well, and there's no limit to the number of things that we're going to come up with on top of vCons as we get out there and start building.
Okay. And do we think there's a race? So, John, I mean, a race, so there's various people who are going to think about being the provider of the vCon because it's a standard, right? So it could be the email provider, it could be the telco, it could be the CRM, it could be anybody who actually provides the vCon. They're just going to take the feeds. So is there an element of urgency here in terms of, who's going to move first, who's going to grab that data, or is it going to be, is that one thing you're kind of thinking about, is there an urgency around it?
Yeah, I think there's an element of urgency, but a lot of it's been driven by, in our case, our licensees solving specific customer problems. So one thing, in aggregate, our community, we're close to 7 million users globally. They're benchmarked at growing at double the rate of the market, and it's because a lot of them are very intimate with their customers and what their needs are. So what we've seen are the early adopters kind of driving it for specific customer needs, partnering with Creo. And now what Robert and the team have done is, in order to kind of hit more of a mass market element, this aspect of having kind of the ready-made solutions that can at least get this technology in more customers' hands, so then they can help develop their specific use cases once they have more experience with it. So I think we're at the stage now where it's really taking it from the technical terms and high concept from a customer perspective to something that they can actually understand and see impact in their business. But I do believe that this is another area where, because it is a standard, you will have people that do a great job of getting out in front of it and probably control more of the data over time because they've done a better job of executing with this tool.
And are the same partners who are innovating on this the partners who innovate on the other parts of your product set? I mean, there is a set of partners within your group who are going to take this sort of thing and really be able to deliver it?
Yeah, there are ones that are looking for that unique customization because they're competing in markets where they have to deal with that more, and they tend to be the more innovative ones. We have a conversation tomorrow about APIs and leveraging our APIs. Some of those partners are a different community, but they're also some of the usual suspects that you line up to lead with something like that. Yes.
And Mark, you're taking the first step. You're starting to take a step as a service provider amongst many things that you do. Kind of, how do you take that first step? What are you doing first? Advice to other people about taking, and maybe Sebastian as well, taking that first step to what should you do?
Yeah, man, I'll give you I want to bring a different flavor in on that. We all know that AI is fundamentally transformative. We're going to have a whole new revolution here. The amount of information we're producing on a daily basis and the amount that now we can process, it's like being a farmer back 100 years ago. You had a simple tractor. Now I could cultivate acres and acres of data, and the insights in there, there's gold in them fields there. There is. And the interesting part about AI from back in the CCA part of it, for example, is about governance and compliance. believe me, our regulators and folks, they're looking at how do we look at what AI does and the corporation's looking at, well, how do I keep control of my data? Who accesses it? Was it AI produced? Was it human produced? Am I letting it in, letting it out? So as we see it here is if we can help through this standard to protect it, to account for it, to transmit it, to decide I want to go here, there, and help facilitate things, there's a place that I hear a lot about in terms of what we're hoping to accomplish. So.
And maybe, Sebastian, I'll ask you the question. From a first step, but where did you start? How do you get into this? Do you just find a partner? If you're sitting out here as a service provider, you've heard some of the concepts, what do you think?
Yeah, exactly. One thing is, of course, since we're building a CPaaS platform, thinking of extracting the data from there, thinking then of how it could look like, technically speaking, to get our SIP calls to produce that data. I think a big thing to me as well is, and we heard that earlier, that voice kind of is now looked at differently with AI. For me, and in general in the organization, there's a big understanding of A2P always in a messaging context, but now you have actually A2P in a voice context. So a voice bot is exactly, you talk to a machine talks to you. You're no longer just connecting people, but maybe you're connected with a machine, and what you need is context. So context for the call, the purpose, and all that stuff, and feeding that context in. And I think for us, with this CPaaS platform we're building, it's the first time we're not just taking traffic from left to right, but we're actually having others originate or terminate that traffic. And so being able to add context to that conversation to me seemed, and having the technical capabilities, of course, seemed interesting enough to look at it, to start partnering, because we are not building that ourselves. We work with tech providers that do this. We want to own the customer. We think we need to also build up the expertise, but not develop everything ourselves. That's why we sat together through our partners with Creo to say, hey, that as a platform, let's use that platform. We have the traffic. We have customers who might be sensitive, who may have other motivations to choose us as their vCon generator for these trunks and not the application on top. So that's kind of the starting point. How we sell this and how we monetize it, I guess, is coming afterwards and is being discussed in parallel. But the starting point was looking at our platform that's strategically placed and how we could add this enabler into that platform.
And add the context into that. That was where your mindset was.
Yes,
and
yes.
that was
contextual communication. A minute is a minute is a minute, but now minutes have different values, and being able to bring context in, being able to get more out of a minute is something that's then also what you can do for SIP trunk, because it's not just quality, it's not just connectivity, but if there is more coming out of it, if a vCon is coming out of a SIP call, you can charge more for that SIP call because you generate value, and that's something we were thinking of, especially looking as well as at the legacy traffic. And
the last question, quickly, one to each. We've got 2 minutes to the panel. Is are we in danger of starting yet another standard, or so will we in 5 years be selling vCons? Or is vCon just an amazingly strong enabler because of the standardization of it? And will we be selling vCons, or will we be selling just amazing enablement, CX enablement solutions? What is this? Are we in danger of confusing the customer and saying we're now all going to buy vCons?
So I think, and Thomas has seen this too. I think in the starting days it was all about selling vCons, right? But we're quickly progressing to, okay, what are the solutions that we need to build out on top of the vCons? Because consumers, they don't buy vCons, they buy solutions. Right?
Yeah, I think the last thing we should do is try and sell vCons. I think we should try to sell intelligent engagement. The quick thing that I will add to this, we talk about hallucinations in AI. There is also the risk of fabrication as people talk to machines more. And the one thing, while we're not selling vCons, that I think is really solid about them is the fact that it's like a signed document. You have the accurate record of what happened in that conversation, and I think that's what we'll be selling, is that value to customers, not the 4 letters behind it.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, I concur 100%. It's not about selling the vCon; it's about the enablement that it empowers for. And I also think that it needs to even broaden its scope in terms of, we talk about talking to a machine, not necessarily talking to an AI machine, but all the telemetry systems that are out there. It's about the AI stuff, or excuse me, the network APIs. There's a lot of this multiplicity of data channels is just immense. So once again, it's how do you help empower that and make it more trusted? So that's the thing.
I agree. I think it's similar to APIs, really. You don't really sell APIs. You help generate outcomes. You help to give access to something. And to me, that's the same thing with the vCon. So it's like with what we said earlier, intelligent engagement, I think is a good summary. Like, in the past, we thought about CPaaS, an API for voice, an API for SMS. Now it's really just about better engagement that different partners enable at different level. And to me, that's also what vCon essentially will do. We'll certainly be lower in the chain, so we'll contribute to that. We may sell these solutions to partners, but I really believe that in the end it's about outcomes, and vCons probably are good for adding context to these outcomes.
Great. Well, I'd just like to thank the panel. Thank you very much, guys. We'll be around. If anybody's got any questions, we'll be around for the rest of the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. We're coming closer to the $1 trillion. I think there's a little bit of work ahead of us, and I think we're touching base into that one on the next panel. Obviously,